Hello, welcome to Philosophy Roulette, number 131. I hope it's not too dark in here for you guys, but it's starting to finally warm up in New York, and if I have the other light on, it's a halogen, and it gets super hot in here, so apologize for video quality if it gets to be a problem. Maybe I'll turn the other light on. Yeah, Philosophy Roulette is where we read philosophy papers and review them live on air. So let's see, we usually try different things. Maybe I'll try a different journal today. See what journals we have. See, popular. Anything I haven't looked at recently. Midwest Studies in Philosophy. Don't know if I've looked at them. Huh, okay. Let's see. 3 kinds of movement. Alright. 7 pages. Kind of things I like. Is tap dance a form of jazz percussion? I wonder if this is a focused issue on some dance. Let's see. We got stuff. Chance of me being able to download it from sites like this is always low. Full access not usually happening. Let's see. Forces behind cell movement. No, that's too bad. Not available. And that would have been exciting. Is tap dance a form of jazz percussion? Oh. Stabs at an ontology of dance. Dance works and choreography. A plea for conceptual clarity. So stick with the shorter ones if I can. Dance. Yeah, look at all these dance things. Post-performance amnesia. Let's see what that is. You know, there's a funny story about that. Yeah, when my cousin got married, he said he blanked out the whole thing. Can't remember his marriage at all. Let's see. More dancers. Dance. Alright, let's see if we can... Putting luck back into moral luck. We've got another paper on that, too. Let's see, take a look at that. So if we can get one of these dance papers, that'll be cool. And there's one of those responsibility things that says it has to be under your power. So I guess they're slicing up different what we could have avoided, not necessarily what was under our control. Oh, come on. People, put yours... Nope, not available. Not available. Oh. Alright, let's see if this one's available. And see if this one's available. This is... okay. I was like, this is going to be depressing. I was like, I've went through a lot of these papers. 16 papers. Oh, and this is very long. Alright, let me go see if I can find something else. But otherwise, we'll get back to this. Yeah. Shucks. That's... alright, let's go look at more of those dance papers. Yeah, so more on the luck stuff. Alright, let's go get some more dancers. On dancers as co-authors... Identity in dance. More luck is Deviant Causation. Hey, thank you, Sara Bernstein. Let's see how long your paper is now. 1 to 14, and it's reasonably spaced. I like that. Okay. This is not available. Alright, I'm going to go look to see if there's one more paper on dance that I can get a hold of. Otherwise, we're going to be doing something else. Dance seen and dance screened. Alright, this is conceptual. I think that's it for these, except they're very long. Shoot. I would have liked to read something on dance, but it doesn't look like any of them are available. Shoot. Okay, fine. Moral luck and deviant causation. That's how it's gotta be. That's how it's gotta be. And if you join me live, and I hope you do, you can recover the link of this paper by typing !paper in the chat box. Otherwise, it'll be below the video in the show notes if you're watching this at some other time on like the YouTubes or the Twitches or whatever. It was interesting. Someone asked me for one of my videos got cut off at the very end, and so they missed my commentary at the end of the paper, and it's on the YouTube video, and they say, "Hey, do you have do you have the rest of the video?" I said, "No. I mean, I can't store hundreds of hours of is like literally getting to hundreds of hours of a video. I'm just don't. I mean, I'd have to go out and buy new hard drives to do that." And the original whatever it is lost now. So it's interesting. It's gone. It's like the old time TV shows. It was broadcast and now it's gone. And anything that is out there, that's the last version of it. So I guess even though we have much more capability to replicate and store data now, there's so much more information going out that it's still unreasonable to store it all. Maybe the NSA has a copy somewhere. I mean, they've got those giant data centers. Anyway, more luck in Deviant Causation. Sara Bernstein, University of Notre Dame. There is a tension in our moral thinking about the relationship between causation and moral responsibility. I sure hope I didn't read this one already. I've read something else on this. On the one hand, people are responsible only for what is in their control. On the other hand, people are responsible only for what they actually cause. But what people actually cause is, in many ways, not entirely in their control. In a famous pair of cases, two drunk drivers each head home from the bar. One drunk driver makes her way home safely, while the other drunk driver strikes and kills a pedestrian. Oh man, I'm pretty sure I read something like this, but maybe it's just because this is an exact, has a very famous example. Okay, intuitively, the lucky agent is not responsible for a death, and the unlucky agent is responsible for a death. Given that both agents have the same intention and perform the same actions, what makes the moral difference is the unlucky occurrence of a bad outcome in one case but not in the other. Such a resultant moral luck, or luck involving how things turn out, is thought to challenge the idea that agents can be held responsible only for what is in their control. In cases of a resultant moral luck, what is out of an agent's control is whether or not an outcome occurs. But whether an outcome occurs is not the only thing that can be out of an agent's control. Consider a case of deviant causation, roughly a causal situation in which a particular planned outcome is brought about in an unplanned manner. Suppose that assassin shoots a victim intending to kill him, but the shot misses. However, the shot starts a sleeping cassowary who angrily mauls the victim to death. Okay, I'm sure I didn't read that. Sleeping cassowary who angrily mauls the victim to death. I'm sure the assassin is very proud of that kill. What is out of the causal control of the assassin is not just whether the unlucky event occurs, but whether the process by which the unlucky event is brought about. If the assassin had not shot, the victim would not have died. However, nevertheless, the prevailing intuition is that the assassin is not morally culpable for the victim's death, given that it happened in such a strange way. The unlucky agent is responsible in the case of the drunk driver, but the assassin is not responsible in the case of the angry cassowary. Okay. As per usual, my intuitions do not track what everyone says the intuitions are. I have actually no real feeling one way or the other. I still blame the assassin for kind of being an assassin. Like, why were they there if you're not going to blame them? So it's like you're getting off of the murder just because you were bad at your job. I don't know if being bad at your job counts when you're doing something like assassin. It's like they had those old cartoons and maybe there were some movies like this, but the old story of the bumbling detective. Like the detective is like the biggest moron in the world to like sort of counteract the Sherlock Holmeses of the world. So you've got the most bumbling idiot for a detective, but somehow miraculously every time they solve the case. And it's like, well, and sort of, they're always comedies or something like that. So the question is, are they responsible for solving the case, or are they just always in the right place at the right time and just, like, by dumb luck, always get the right murderer? It's like, in some sense, just being there does count for something. So, I don't know. I mean, this is clearly not a knockdown argument. My intuitions are always a little off from everybody else's. Okay, this contrast between intuitions is an instance of a puzzling tension in our treatment of cases of moral luck. We seem to hold agents fully morally responsible for unlucky outcomes, but only partially morally responsible for unlucky outcomes in which the causal process occurs differently than they had intended. The tension represents a deeper inconsistency in our thinking about the relationship between causation and resultant luck. More generally, luck seems to minimize responsibility in some cases, but not in others. I mean, I'd still go with this. Like, luck does seem to minimize responsibility. We'll see. The tension is the focus of this paper. Here is the plan. In section 1, I lay out the problem in detail, giving several more cases of the phenomenon. I discuss the apparent tension between intuitions about resultant moral luck and intuitions about deviant causation. I examine the prospects for explaining away the tension and also the possibility of a uniform approach to cases of resultant moral luck. In section 2, I show how this tension sheds light on the difficulty of solving another well-known puzzle about causation and moral responsibility, the thirsty traveler. Yeah, I'm still wondering about this paragraph in philosophy papers. So many of them that I read have this sort of, here's the layout of the paper. I feel like it's breaking the fourth wall, like, of philosophy. It's like, here's the argument structure. It's like, no, just argue. I'm fine. I'll figure it out. It's like, I don't want to be pulled out of my, like, reading to know what's going on. That's like someone going through me complaining about unimportant things. Okay, in what follows, I will make a few assumptions for the sake of argument. First, I will assume that there is such a thing as moral luck, that is, luck that can make a difference to an agent's moral responsibility for an outcome. I think the other paper said that you couldn't. I can't remember now. Though this is a controversial matter, I will assume, for example, that the drunk driver who kills a pedestrian is more morally responsible than the drunk driver who does not, even if they are both blameworthy for poor intentions and bad actions. Second, I will assume that consequences stemming from actual causation play some role in moral responsibility for outcomes, even if that role turns out to be small. This means that moral responsibility is more than a matter of assessing a person's character or intentions at the time of a particular outcome, though those are relevant. Alright, so consequences play a role. It's not just how they were set up, because that's the other way out of the moral luck, is say, well, it's the character of the person that matters, and that's why the fact that one drunk driver killed someone, one didn't, they could have been swapped because of their bad intentions by getting drunk and driving, and therefore both of them are equally guilty. Okay, a person must, in some sense, be causally connected to an outcome in order to be held responsible for it. So this is the opposite perspective, I guess. Third, while I hope to stay as neutral as possible in what moral responsibility consists in this discussion, I will assume that it amounts to blameworthiness and praiseworthiness. Alright, you will all have to forgive me for the dumb things I say. It wasn't me, it was the beer's fault. Don't mind the fact that I'm drinking it. Moral luck. Distinguish between three elements of causal structure. 1. Whether the effect occurs. 2. The causal process by which the outcome is brought about. 3. The manner in which the effect occurs. Whether the effect occurs as a matter of the effects happening or not happening. What? I mean, whether the effect occurs is a matter of the effects. Okay, that's just, redundant. It's like, does it happen? For example, the occurrence of a pedestrian's death versus its non-occurrence constitutes the causal process which leads to the outcome's occurrence. For example, a bullet causing victim's death versus an angry cassowary. So there's a process. There's multiple. There's a lot of causal processes, but I'm sure that this is just stating that there is such a process. So we don't need to get into the philosophy of science and multiple causation things. The manner in which the effect occurs concerns the particular way in which the relevant outcome happens. For example, death by bullet versus cassowary-related injuries. I mean, okay, that's fine. This is just the one type of causal story. I mean, the fact that the person can die because of these things is not actually an relevant explanation at the moment. Much attention has been paid to two cases in which luck makes a difference to whether the effect occurs. But that is only one piece of the puzzle. Each element of the causal structure that is out of the agent's control is subject to luck. An angry cassowary, among the things that are out of control of the assassin, is a second part of the causal structure, or the particular means by which the outcome is brought about. Call this sort of situation causal process luck. Yeah. Sure. There's just, I mean, there's always we don't know how any causal process works. It's just a problem of understanding causal processes. Like, there's always the action at a distance, which have been treating as spooky ever since Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But action at a nearness is just as spooky too. We don't actually know the microphysical causation any more clearly than anything else. So I don't. This was my problem in the other paper as well. The particular means by which the outcome is brought about is always of some level that we kind of decide what the relevant level is, and that's the relevant causal level. So let's just say that. But I mean, this sort of stuff, I don't. Yeah, so my background in causation makes me a little unhappy with this formulation, but it's fine, really. It doesn't cause any problem in this area. Alright, causal process luck is an additional kind of resultant moral luck at work in cases of deviant causation. It is additional because it occurs on top of traditional resultant luck involving the outcome. In our case of deviant causation, it is very unlucky that the outcome occurs despite its circuitous causal route. The prevailing intuition in cases of deviant causation is that the initiating agent is not morally responsible for the outcome, even if she is morally responsible for some lesser act, such as the attempt to bring about the outcome. To help warm up this idea, consider a few more cases. Careless driver. Galen plots to murder Jillian with poison. As he is driving to buy the materials for the poison, he fails to see a pedestrian in the pedestrian walkway and strikes and kills the pedestrian. Upon rushing out of the car, he realizes that the pedestrian was Jillian. Okay, so let's get through these because we'll see what we actually have to what the actual use out of this, because already looking at that makes me think. Angry friend. Joey plans to murder Jake by poisoning his drink. While preparing the poison, Joey is so nervous that he breaks the bottle of poison. Shortly thereafter, Jake slips on a bit of glass from the broken poison bottle and dies from the fall. In each of these cases, an agent initiates a causal process to bring about an intended outcome, but the intended outcome is brought about by means so different than those planned by the agent that the agent is not responsible for the occurrence of the outcome. The deviance of the causal process from the agent's original intention reduces moral responsibility and, in some cases, legal responsibility for the outcome. Luck enters the picture because something out of the agent's control, the particular nature of the causal process, downgrades culpability for the intended outcome to culpability for a mere attempt. Yeah. Okay, so on one of these things, it's like, because he didn't know who he hit in the car, then it's like he killed some other person, but it wasn't like premeditated to kill that person, even though he was planning on killing that person and he was in the process of working it out. And then this one is the same sort of thing. The process of getting prepared to murder someone ended up killing the person. That's exactly what happened here. The preparations ended up being the cause of the death, not the actual attempted murder. Okay. One might initially be skeptical that the initiators of deviant causal chains should count as causes of the relevant outcomes, but note that there is counterfactual dependence between the outcome and the initiator of a deviant causal chain. In the case of the angry cassowary, the victim would not have been mauled to death had the assassin not shot. In an angry friend, Jake would not have died had Joey not prepared the poison. Given the existence of counterfactual dependence, even if transitivity failed generally, this is arguably not a case where transitivity fails. So appealing to the failure of transitivity is not a good idea, at least not in this case, if not more generally. Moreover, there are no promising routes to deny the efficacy of deviant causes. The prospects for a principal distinction between deviant and non-deviant causation are bleak. Well, yeah, I guess on principle. But I mean, I'm a little worried about these two examples because, again, these were like in the preparation of the attempted murder. It wasn't the actual attempted murder, it was just in the preparation of the attempted murder. The assassination, the assassin had pulled the trigger in full attempt to kill with that singular act. The preparation was completely done at that point. So I'm a little worried that there is a distinction between these two cases right here, where the preparation somehow causes someone to murder, where in some sense they could have actually stopped, like in their preparations at some point, versus like where the assassin, once they pull the trigger and start off the cassowary, like as soon as they pull the trigger in some sense, then the causal chain has left their control. Where in these instances, the causal chain is still like underneath their control because they were still in the preparation phase. Like say I poison somebody, and unbeknownst to me, they're immune to that poison. So like I couldn't have poisoned them, but it caused some other interaction that wouldn't have otherwise been poisonous to anyone else, but it happened to kill them. So it's like, did the poison kill them? No, it wasn't cause of death of poison. It was cause of death by some unrelated chemical process. But that's more like the assassination attempt, and not like these preparations to make the poison, because in that case I already had the poison done and had already actually done the act of poisoning. But I could have stopped, like these folks could have stopped right here. So, I mean, I agree with the point of trying to figure out like a principal distinction between deviant and non-deviant causation, but I don't like the examples exactly. I mean, I think just sticking to the assassin one is fine. Alright, more generally, it's plausible that agents who initiate deviant causal chains feel something like agent regret. Why would they? Why would they feel any better? Wouldn't they be happy? I mean, if it was the car accident case, I'd be overjoyed that it was an accident, because there was almost no way of getting like the murder charge at that point. I'd be like, oh man, I killed them, that's so sad. Woo, it was a bad accident. It's like, I'm just gonna get a slap on the wrist comparatively. I mean, I guess if they had like a perfect getaway plan otherwise, but... Okay, according to Williams, agent regret is a type of regret felt by an agent who is causally but not morally responsible for an outcome. Williams' paradigmatic case of an agent regret involves a truck driver who accidentally hits a child who darts out in front of his vehicle. Yeah, that's always sad. It is reasonable in this case for the truck driver to feel regret over what he has done, even though he is not at fault. Similarly, a non-malintentioned actor of a deviant causal chain might regret what has occurred despite not being morally responsible for the outcome. Initiators of deviant causal chains are to be considered causes. Okay. Alright, so initiators... Alright, so yeah, like the assassin. Alright, return to the cases in which we began, which I shall call drunk driver and angry cassowary. As I suggested at the outset, the intuition that luck makes moral difference is not stable across all cases of resultant luck. Though drunk driver involves luck in whether the outcome occurs, and angry cassowary involves luck in how the outcome is brought about, typically the agent is seen to be fully responsible in the former, but not in the latter case. Yeah, the drunk driver versus angry cassowary. Okay. Similarly, with careless driver and angry friend, because the causal processes go awry, the agents are not fully responsible despite the occurrences of the intended outcomes. The deviance of the causal processes seem to supersede more typical considerations about luck and responsibility, namely that person is still fully morally responsible for an outcome impacted by luck. Okay, so I think this makes sense now. Good. Call this phenomenon tension. Specifically, there is a tension between a commitment to moral responsibility of the agent in the drunk driver case, but not in the case of the angry cassowary. Well, again, I'm not so... Some tension, I'm not... Why? Alright. Because in both cases, an agent initiates a causal chain leading to a particular outcome. In both cases, it is bad luck that the outcome occurs, but only in one case, angry cassowary, does an element that is out of control of the agent, the nature of the causal process, reduce moral responsibility for the outcome. For some reason, whether the outcome occurs seems to matter less than whether the causal process leading up to the outcome matches the agent's intentions. Tension is puzzling because it reflects the unevenness with which luck impacts moral responsibility. In traditional cases of resultant luck, an agent is fully morally responsible for an outcome even if it owes to circumstances beyond her control. That the outcome is out of her control does not lessen moral responsibility. But when the causal process runs out of control, it reduces moral responsibility for an outcome even if the intended outcome occurs. The tension raises a few challenges. One challenge is to explain why the inconsistency exists. Why hold people fully responsible in one sort of case but not another? From whence does the moral exception arise? Another challenge is to try to resolve or eliminate the tension. It is possible to systematize the treatment of resultant moral luck. I now turn to these topics. A natural first inclination is to explain away the tension by appeal to something special about the causal process, which amplifies its effect on moral responsibility. The rough idea is that there is particular moral significance attached to the fit between an agent's intentions for causal process and the way that process actually occurs. If the causal process deviates significantly from the agent's intentions for it, then it makes sense to decrease the agent's moral responsibility for the outcome. This idea comports with an epistemic requirement on moral responsibility, similar to the foreseeable requirement on legal responsibility. If an agent can't foresee the bizarre causal process leading to the outcome, then she isn't responsible for it, or at least less responsible for it. But this strategy proves difficult to defend. First, the outcome in each of these cases is foreseeable, and the agent's intentions line up with the relevant outcomes. Each agent intends to cause a victim's death. Shooting at someone, for example, brings with it a foreseeable risk that the person will die as a result of the shot. If the outcome is foreseeable that the agent acts in order to bring out the outcome, why impose epistemic constraint on the causal process leading to the outcome? Yeah. Second, the nature of this constraint would just be very nasty in terms of, like what I was saying, the requirement, like the granularity of how much you have to know. Because that was also at issue in the other paper on this, because they were trying to blow someone up, but the way that the bomb worked is, of course, beyond most people's understanding, and so, how fine-grained of an epistemic constraint can you actually make on anything for that matter? Just say, like, the relevant one. Second, drawing a principled distinction between deviant and non-deviant causal processes is extremely difficult. Exactly how deviant must the causal process be in order for the agent to be less responsible for the outcome? Almost no one imagines an intended causal process in perfect, exhausting detail. No, that's not possible, as I was just saying. There are mildly deviant causal processes that nonetheless do not minimize moral responsibility, as in the following case. Ricochet. Jayantha shoots at Jordan intending to kill him. The bullet ricochets off a nearby rock and kills Jordan. So again, just being a bad shot doesn't make you less responsible when you shoot at someone trying to kill them. Here, the causal process does not occur in the way that Jayantha intends. Nonetheless, the natural intuition is that Jayantha is still morally responsible for Jordan's death, since the causal process is not so different than the one that Jayantha intended. Deviance in the causal process isn't an automatic defeater for moral responsibility. It minimizes responsibility only in some cases. Locating the source of the moral exception in the nature of the causal process is an unpromising avenue for explaining away the tension. Rather than locate the moral exception in the deviance of causal process, it might be tempting to hold that there is something about the occurrence of the intended outcome that renders it immune to responsibility decreasing factors. The general idea is that when an outcome occurs in the way planned by the agent is responsible for it. But when it does not occur in the way planned, the agent is not responsible for it. In Angry Cassowary, for example, the victim's death occurs via a cassowary mauling rather than intended gunshot. The assassin is less culpable for this unplanned mode of death. This thought makes a fair bit of theoretical and practical use. We hold people responsible for outcomes when the intended outcome occurs as a result of their actions, but not when those outcomes don't occur. But there are several wrinkles, yes, of course. First wrinkle. In case of deviant causation, the intended outcome does occur. Sometimes the outcome even occurs via the intended mode. For example, lazy assassin. Becky is dispatched to kill victim. Becky shoots at victim but misses. The shot wakes up Bill, who was independently dispatched by a different assassination agency. Bill shoots victim and kills victim. Bill would not have shot at Becky had Becky not awakened him. Had Becky not shot, victim would have not died. So there's two assassins. One's like asleep and just missing the opportunity shooting because the other one causes a bang. The good shot wakes up and takes the shot and kills the person. Okay. In this example, victim dies in the way that Becky intends via gunshot. It is the causal process that occurs differently than she intends, not necessarily the outcome. Well, if she has to prove that she killed him, then she's out of luck. She ain't going to get paid. Second wrinkle. Whether the particular planned outcome occurs is also subject to luck based on the modal fragility of the outcome. According to Lewis, we should call an event modally fragile if or to the extent that it could not have occurred at a different time or in a different manner. A fragile event has a rich sense. It has stringent conditions of occurrence. It is conceptually and metaphysically unclear how modally fragile outcomes are in these cases. But if the planned outcome occurs in a slightly different way, significantly different way than the planned by the agent, it might count as a different outcome entirely. Well, I mean, that's what I was just saying about if you have to get paid and prove that you were the one that took the shot, because, they may be paying you to kill the person, not just for the person to die. So, because an assassin doesn't get paid if, like, the person dies of a heart attack, I don't think. Recall a careless driver. Yeah, that's the, say the person dies because of your shot, but you don't get paid because they had a heart attack. You get paid if you shot them, even if the sound startled them into having a heart attack. Okay. Recall a careless driver in which Galen brings about Jillian's death by hitting her in a pedestrian path on the way to buying the poison. Here, the location, time, and manner of death are very different than what Galen had planned. So different that Galen is not to be held morally responsible for intentionally killing Jillian, even though he might have been held responsible for some other lesser transgression involving vehicular negligence. But it is a matter of luck that the intended outcome occurred so differently than what he planned that it counts as a distinct outcome. Well, I like my, I agree with what the person's saying here, the author's saying. I still like my sort of duck out, basically, that there's a difference between causal processes that leave your control and causal processes that are still under your control. And this one, when he was still buying it, it was still under his control. He could have still stopped that causal process. Whereas the gunshot examples, you can't stop the gunshot from occurring once you pull the trigger, basically. Okay, but either way, this is, I think, correctly argued, or well argued. I don't know about if there is a correct argumentation. The susceptibility of modal fragility outcomes to luck is particularly problematic because there is thought to be a causal asymmetry between hasteners and delayers. I have not heard this distinction before. What is a hastener and a delayer? A hastener brings about a particular outcome sooner than it would have been brought about otherwise. A delayer puts off an outcome to a later time than it would have otherwise occurred. Typically, hasteners are taken to be causes, whereas delayers are not. For instance, antivenom. Drake is bitten by a scorpion and taken to hospital to receive antivenom. 5 hours after receiving the infusion, Drake dies from a reaction to the antivenom. If he had not died from the antivenom, he would have died from the scorpion bite a few hours later. It is what I was saying about the poison earlier. Like, some other causal process kills the person. Okay, here the infusion of antivenom hastens Drake's death. Intuitively, the infusion causes Drake's death, even though all it did in some sense is speed up something that was already going to occur. In contrast, delayers are generally not taken to cause their outcomes. For example, so this was antivenom, and then we got slow antivenom. Drake is bitten by a scorpion and taken to the hospital to receive antivenom. The antivenom slows the progression of the scorpion venom. Drake dies 12 hours later than he would have without the antivenom. Okay, so this was stuff that kills you, but the best they could do is prolong your slow, painful demise. Intuitively, the antivenom does not cause Drake's death. It merely delays something that was going to happen in any case. It is merely lucky that the administration of the antivenom caused Drake to die later rather than sooner. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's just, I don't know why it's lucky. Okay. Many deviant causes hasten or delay their outcomes. If the outcomes are fragile, whether a particular outcome occurs is subject to luck with respect to when, where, and how it happens. Change the nature of the outcome, and one might change the identity of the outcome entirely. Modal fragility undermines the attempt to explain away tension by appealing to the occurrence of the outcome as the most significant feature of moral assessment, because whether a particularly modally fragile outcome occurs is also a matter out of an agent's control. I tentatively conclude that the attempts to explain away tension are unpromising. Yeah. But an even larger challenge lies in trying to resolve tension, that is, systematically treat all cases of resultant moral luck. I won't hazard such a solution here, but I will make a few pessimistic remarks about the prospects. I begin by noting that a systematizing moral treatment of resultant luck would require treating all cases coherently. For example, if agents are fully morally responsible in cases involving resultant moral luck, then they are responsible in all such cases, not just some of them. Or if the involvement of resultant luck lessens moral responsibility, then it should do so in all such cases. But such a systematic treatment would be too revisionary to be palatable. One would not want to hold that the drunk driver who kills a pedestrian is less responsible for the outcome because she is unlucky. Retaining a commitment to reduce moral responsibility in cases of deviant causation requires such a view. Alternatively, one might hold that agents who initiate deviant causal chains are fully responsible for the outcomes in those cases, just as the drunk driver who kills a pedestrian is fully responsible. Some might find this solution tempting, especially those antecedently drawn to full responsibility of agents in cases of deviant causation. But such a commitment would include the unpalatable result of agents being morally responsible for outcomes resulting from extremely deviant causal chains. For example, asbestos. Assassin aims to kill victim by poisoning her. Assassin prepares a canteen full of poison, but the poison turns out to be inert. However, unbeknownst to assassin, the canteen is lined with asbestos. Victim drinks the canteen for several years, eventually dying of an asbestos-related condition. I feel like one of those TV ads. Did you get asbestos poisoning from working in a mill, shipyard, or? Yeah. Here the nature of the outcome is the causal process. Here the outcome and the causal process is extremely remote from the assassin's intentions, and yet a systematic treatment of resultant moral luck would require that the assassin be held morally responsible for the outcome. Nor does adding an epistemic constraint help, since cases can be easily generated in which a malintentioned agent brings about a foreseeable consequence of her actions in a way different than she intends. While die-hard consequentialists might see the appeal of blanket moral responsibility for intended outcomes, most others would be skittish about such an indiscriminate commitment to moral responsibility for outcomes. Though there is much more to be said on the topic, I tentatively conclude that a systematic treatment of resultant moral luck cases looks unpromising. Sure. 2. Thirsty traveler. Though it creates a problem for systematic treatments of a resultant moral luck, the idea that deviance in the causal process reduces moral responsibility is fruitful for understanding another well-known puzzle about causation and responsibility, the thirsty traveler. Sorry, I just like the way that sounds. There are many versions of the case, but the basic one goes like this. Thirsty traveler. Bill and Susie are independently dispatched assassins targeting thirsty traveler. Victim has a canteen full of water that she needs to drink for her survival. In an attempt to kill thirsty traveler, Bill fills the canteen with poison that kills by dehydration. Susie, unaware of Billy's assassination attempt, steals the canteen in an attempt to deprive victim of water. Victim goes for a drink of water from her canteen, but cannot find it, and so she dies of dehydration. The case gives rise to both causal and moral puzzles. Causally, the contributions of both Billy and Susie seem to cancel each other out. But it would be odd to hold that neither assassin causally contributed to the victim's death. They both, in some sense, brought it about. It also seems wrong to hold one or the other assassin fully responsible. The first assassin who fills a canteen with poison would have been responsible for the death had the second assassin not come along. But due to the second assassin's removal of the canteen, first assassin isn't directly causally connected to victim's death. It also seems wrong to hold the second assassin responsible for victim's death, since stealing a canteen that is already full of poison doesn't seem to directly contribute to victim's death. The case and its variants have spawned myriad causal diagnoses. There is an argument made that thirsty travel is a strange case of causal overdetermination. In a case of causal overdetermination, there are multiple causes sufficient to bring about an outcome in roughly the same way as when Billy and Susie each throw a rock at a window and both rocks hit the window at the same time. Either rock would have been sufficient to shatter the window. In the thirsty traveler, each assassin is causally sufficient for victim's deprivation of life-sustaining water. But there is also an argument to be made that thirsty traveler is a strange case of causal preemption in which one cause preempts the other from bringing about the outcome. For example, suppose that Billy and Susie each throw their rocks at a window, but Billy's rock reaches the window and shatters it before Susie's rock can. Billy's rock is the preempting cause. Susie's rock is preempted from bringing about the outcome. In Thirsty Traveler, Susie's stealing the canteen preempts Billy's poison from killing the victim. There are more outre causal diagnoses to offer. Some have argued that both assassins are collectively responsible. Others have argued that neither assassin is causally responsible. Sartorio argues that it is the obtaining of a disjunctive fact, the stealing or substituting that as the cause, the assassins collectively but not distributively bring about victim's death. She also suggests that settling the causal puzzle doesn't necessarily settle the moral puzzle. I won't argue here for a comprehensive positive answer to the complex causal puzzle. Rather, I wish to use the results from the preceding discussion to draw attention to a few underexplored features of the case. The first underexplored aspect of Thirsty Traveler is its inclusion of deviant causation. Victim's death occurs to Billy and Susie's causal contributions, but it does not occur via the causal process planned by Billy or Susie. Wait, Susie wanted the victim to die of dehydration. So, that did work. But I guess she wanted it to happen specifically by not having her canteen with her. So it's more general. Alright. The fact that the causal structure is deviant explains a number of puzzling intuitions about the case. First, the involvement of deviant causation explains why we seem uneasy calling both Billy and Susie fully morally responsible for victim's death, even if the case is read as causal overdetermination. Even though victim dies due to dehydration, it is neither dehydration via poison as planned by Susie, nor dehydration via deprivation of canteen as water as planned by Billy. No, I think this is backwards, but that doesn't matter. As in deviant cases involving individual agents, the mismatch between the causal process and each agent's respective intention reduces moral responsibility for the outcome. Another common intuition about Thirsty Traveler is that there is some sort of causal asymmetry between the two assassins, but it's hard to put a finger on exactly what it is. One hint draws on my earlier discussion of hasteners and delayers. According to one interpretation of the causal structure of the case, Susie stealing the canteen causes the death to happen later than would have otherwise. If she had not stolen the canteen, Billy's poison would have killed victim sooner. This means two things. First, Susie stealing the canteen is a delayer. It delays a death that would have otherwise occurred sooner. Second, Susie stealing the canteen is a preemptor. It preempts Billy's poison from killing the victim. This strange combination of causal features, being a preemptor but also a delayer, goes some of the way in explaining why we have difficulty diagnosing the causal asymmetry of the case. Being a preemptor is often a signal that something is a cause of a particular outcome, as when Billy's rock shatters the window before Susie's rock can reach it. Cases of causal preemption are also cases of resultant moral luck. It is a matter out of each agent's control which cause ends up bringing about the effect, which one is merely preempted. We tend to hold that the preempting agent causally and morally responsible for the outcome. The preempted agent is lucky. The preempting agent causally and morally responsible for the outcome. The preempted agent is the preempted agent is lucky. Excuse me. The preempting agent is unlucky. In Thirsty Traveler, that means we would hold Susie causally responsible for Thirsty Traveler's death, since her stealing the canteen preempts Billy's poison from killing the victim. But the case is particularly strange because Susie stealing the canteen is also a delayer in addition to being a preemptor. Being a delayer is not generally taken to be a way of automatically counting as a cause. That Susie stealing the canteen delays the death muddies our causal intuitions a bit because we tend to think that she merely changed the death that was already going to occur by making it later. But she also cuts off another causal process from occurring, the death by poisoning. The causal asymmetry in the case can be chalked up to this strange combination of factors. The moral diagnosis of the case can be chalked up to deviant causation, since each agent initiates a causal process that eventuates in the intended outcome, but not in the way intended. Conclusion. There is a heretofore underexplored tension in our treatment of cases of moral luck. Luck reduces moral responsibility when a causal chain is deviant, but does not reduce moral responsibility when it is merely unlucky that the outcome occurs. Deviance of causal processes supersedes occurrence of the unlucky outcomes in assessing agents' moral responsibility. This intuitive quirk generates an incoherence in the way we treat cases of resultant moral luck, but does some valuable explanatory work with respect to other puzzles of causation and moral responsibility, including the Thirsty Traveler. There is still much investigation to be done into the relationship between causation and moral responsibility. The more we think about it, the more puzzling it is. Okay, nice paper. It's just too much philosophy, and I've lost my intuitions about everything. So, it's like I understand the tension that is brought up here. It's like you think that things are lucky, and then what's the tension? Why? What does the luck have to do with responsibility? And then we've got and then different factors seem to contribute in different ways, and that causes everything to get out of whack. I mean, this was nicely written. Some of these are philosophy papers are less nicely written. And just because I don't say that on every paper doesn't mean that was poorly written. Sometimes I just forget. But this was nicely written. Well argued for the most part. I thought I had like one question about things that didn't think was great, but it wasn't important. It wasn't like a major beef. No big deal. Um, yeah. I like my the incompetent detective or the incompetent assassin. Why do we give them credit for what they do? I usually default to why do we actually think we're any good at understanding causal chains? Like we have like deviant causal chains and then like non-deviant, just like sort of non-deviant causal processes. I'm not even sure that like the distinction, like the idea that there is any sort of non-deviant, like there's a causal process that we could even, that there is the sort of right causal process. I'm not sure that that even applies in certain cases because it's just so hard to locate something that would be non-deviant versus deviant. So I find it hard. It's like, if the assassin never showed up, like, the assassin was just a bum, like a terrible assassin. You pay them the money and, they just get drunk with it and they don't go and do the work. But then, like, you paid them the money and then something, like, completely otherwise happens and the person dies. But in some sense, like, if you hadn't paid the assassin the money and they wouldn't have died. Now, and this happens time after time and after time again. The assassin is just the luckiest assassin in the world. They always have perfect alibis because they were nowhere near the place, but just paying the person somehow kills them. It's like the worst case of deviant causal process in the world. But the world would be better off, I guess, if like the assassin didn't exist because all those people would have otherwise lived, or at least they wouldn't have died according to due to that assassin. It's like the luckiest person in the world. Do we ever really blame the assassin then just because they happen to be the luckiest assassin in the world? Yeah, maybe. I'm not even sure that like it makes sense at that point. It's like, why can't we just blame? That's right, scapegoat. Like, do we blame scapegoats? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And is that the wrong thing to do? Maybe not. So I'm not sure. Maybe there's a scapegoat problem here. That like we're just thinking we're applying the non-deviant causal chain and like that somehow makes a difference, but maybe we're just wrong. Maybe the causal chain is basically some sort of Bayesian reasoning that's just like only works sometimes, and we've sort of refined it over time, but it's really just dumb luck in the end, and it doesn't even apply. Yeah. Oh well, that's just the end of my rambling. I don't have much to say about this because I thought it was mostly well done. It didn't like come out with any like rah like super strong conclusions. It was just a, we're not going to get a good distinction sometimes, but this does provide a nice way of looking at things, which I think it did. So I mean, the paper didn't try to bite off more than it could chew either, and so it's not got a. So I mean that's fine. It's just like it's nice paper. So unless any of the viewers you have anything to ask or want to know, I'll sign off for tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow morning, I guess. Okie dokie. Have a good night, all. Bye bye. Stay safe. And yeah, careful out there. That moral luck is out to get you.